Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Eltoma panel discussion. Thank you for your attendance and for your interest in today's webinar. Panel discussion. We have with us our experts, Anna Podsetova from our St. Petersburg office. Welcome. We also have Ina Gerasimova, also our tax expert here at the Moscow office. Myself, Alvaro Rivero, also one of the experts here at the office in Moscow. The topic of today is a very renowned topic in the media right now, especially with offshore jurisdictions. Basically, we're going to talk today about the Paradise Papers. The topic of today, it's been under a lot of controversy lately, especially since initially with the Panama Papers and now with the Paradise Papers. We're going to give an overall introduction of what happened, what are the next steps to follow, and so on. Please feel free to leave your comments and questions on the chat box on the left. We will try to reply to all of your questions as soon as possible. The agenda for today is basically to describe what are the Paradise Papers, what are the main differences between the Paradise Papers and the Panama Papers, an overall opinion on the legality of the information of the documents, the most important industries involved, the Appleby's take on the matter, which is the law firm, and we will explain that a little bit more in detail, the OECD's approach, which is basically very important for tax planning, the most affected parties if the offshore centers were affected by different policy, and the foreseeable future of offshore centers from a policy perspective. The Paradise Papers are 13.4 million documents, private documents made publicly available through an investigation by media outlets. The media is portraying this as a leak of documentation of Appleby's law firm that evidences the use of offshore jurisdictions to avoid taxation by major world leaders and members of royalty, especially in the United Kingdom. This is also regarded as an investigation that took criminal hacking into the firm's server to obtain this documentation. We will look into the opinions of Appleby's firm more specifically later on. Several media outlets have been pursuing offshore financial centers used by leading politicians and public figures for a few years now. This topic achieved more attention with the Panama Papers, which we will briefly discuss, and now with the so-called Paradise Papers. Exactly what happened, there is not yet a conclusive answer in terms of what really happened and how the media obtained this amount of private documentation. The media clearly states it was a leak. On the other hand, Appleby, the law firm from where the documents were obtained, claims that this was an illegal hacking and criminal action should be taken. In any case, this presents an immediate harm to the privacy of Appleby's clients and to the perception of offshore financial centers by the general public. So far, there has been no conclusive claim as to whether or not the parties involved were incurring in illegal activities or not. So far, we know that the investment schemes were legal, despite some criticism. And Appleby is doing their best to actually clarify these issues. They issued several media statements that we will also cover briefly. But what Appleby is as a law firm, Appleby is an offshore law firm operating in 10 different offices. And Appleby is dedicated to providing practical solutions to international business, just like other firms like Eltoma Corporate Services. Since the Paradise Papers, it has issued several media statements with their take on the matter and have repeatedly stated that this was no leak of information, but rather this was, quote, a serious criminal act on our systems where accessed by an intruder who deployed the tactics of a professional hacker, end quote. The media hasn't yet issued any statement in this particular regard, and it's hard to say if they ever will. Appleby, as many other firms and consultancy companies rendering advice on tax planning and corporate matters, do not necessarily involve criminal activities. Criminal activities can and are happening in every country in the world, no matter offshore or onshore. And it's unfair to categorize offshore jurisdictions as an illegal vehicle for international business. Quite the opposite, most offshore jurisdictions apply high standards of anti-money laundering regulations, KYC, and compliance standards. At the outset, the United Kingdom's Queen Private Investments, President Trump, cabinet members, advisors, and donors, even trying to reach out to find connections with President Putin's inner circle. President Trudeau's advisors, Stephen Brothman corporations like Apple, Nike, and others have been mentioned by the media and are certainly affected in the eyes of the public, despite lacking any concrete proof of wrongdoing. On the other hand, media outlets say this will increase pressure on world leaders to curb aggressive tax avoidance schemes. This, if becoming a reality, can have tremendous effects on the world's economy, as offshore financial centers play a key role in facilitating and growing mobility of finance for cross-border transactions. From a business perspective, in the globalist world of today, countries just as corporations should increase their competitiveness to attract business instead of trying to add barriers to international business and trade, which empirically has diminished economic growth. How to avoid these kind of situations? In our technological times, data protection and security have become a fundamental issue for any business. At Eltoma Corporate Services, for example, we are increasingly making sure that we have all the security mechanisms in place to protect our information. On the other hand, consultancy firms are taking anti-money laundering regulations and KYC standards and other regulations more and more seriously in order to remain compliant before the regulators of each jurisdiction. This is increasing operation costs and slowing procedures in many countries. Nevertheless, it's highly possible that countries will seek to keep their competitiveness and implement more efficient compliance tools for the users and maintain the inflow of foreign direct investment on the same place. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the main differences between the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers. Our specialist, Anna Putsetova, will give us some intake on these issues. Anna, please, can you give us some information in this regard?
Thank you, Alvaro. Yes, actually what happened during Panama Papers scandal, that millions of secret files of Panama-based law firm Mossack Fonseca were sent to a German newspaper, which collaborated with 100 media organizations to study the documents. The documents contained personal information about wealthy individuals and public officials that had previously been kept private. While offshore business entities are legal, reporters found that some of the Mossack Fonseca shell corporations were used for illegal purposes, including fraud, tax evasion, and evading international sanction. Reports identified names of then current national leaders in the documents, including President of United Arab Emirates, President of Ukraine, Sheikh of Saudi Arabia, and the Prime Minister of Ireland. And the key difference between Panama Paper and Paradise Papers is the size. The Panama Papers were much bigger in size. It was 2.6 terabyte, and the Paradise Paper is just 1.4 terabytes. And actually, Panama Paper includes 140 politicians and public officials, and Paradise Papers includes less, 127. Also, it consists of 47 countries, and Panama Papers includes 50 countries. But another difference is that number of records is much bigger in Paradise Papers. It's 13.5 million. When in Panama Papers, it was 11.5 million files and records. Yes, and to speak about Mossack Fonseca and Appleby, it's actually one of the largest service providers. Appleby law firm, which outputs in Bermuda, Cayman Island, BVI, and some other jurisdiction. Appleby provides itself being a leader member of the magic circle of top-ranking offshore service providers. And actually, Mossack Fonseca was also one of the biggest service providers in this kind of jurisdictions until in 2016, it was discredited firm and in the scandal of Panama Paper. And also, Appleby says that it has investigated all the allegations and found there is no evidence of any wrongdoing either on the part of ourselves or our clients.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, exactly. It's still inconclusive to know whether the documents show any evidence of wrongdoing. So we believe that this will lead to further investigations. But so far, personally, I believe that it's only the media who's trying to actually portray this in a malicious manner. So we shouldn't be too worried about that. Ina, please, could you give us some information on the overall opinion on the legality of the information?
Yes, as Alvaro has already mentioned, and as Anna has already mentioned, the main problem with this leak was that the source of the information is actually undisclosed. So any of the journalists, BBC or any other media can actually state clearly where they got the information from, and the original source of the information, the German newspaper, Süddeutsche Zeitung, I'm sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly, they also cannot specify the source of their information. As Anna has already mentioned, Appleby law firm, they state that it wasn't actually the leak of information, but rather an illegal hack. So the legality of this information is disputed, and obviously no legal actions can be initiated based on the information that hasn't been obtained in a legal way. But nevertheless, as the parties and persons affected by this scandal are quite high-profile persons and very high net worth individuals and multinational corporations, so even the Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, Mr. Putin's son-in-law, Shakira, etc., the company Apple, obviously it drew lots of attention, lots of public attention, and there is a dispute about whether this. So yes, as Alvaro has already said, indeed there is no direct evidence of illegality of the tax schemes that were undisclosed and uncovered. Nevertheless, there is an ongoing dispute over whether the schemes used and the schemes that were in place are ethical, because obviously these schemes show that rich people can, using the services of the best lawyers and the best accountants, they can pay less taxes, and it puts under jeopardy the public services in many countries. So the education, the medical services, they get less money, and so they are under-financed and they cannot be developed properly, whereas rich people become richer. And
right.
So that's the main point. But again, many people and many experts can actually argue that offshore companies, they are not used only for illegal purposes such as money laundering or tax evasion or
Terrorist financing, yeah.
Yes, terrorist financing or hiding their assets from the creditors, but rather to, for example, to protect their assets from the currency fluctuations, from unstable economies. For example, I know that many of our clients, they set up foreign companies in order to do business in foreign jurisdictions, so that it's easier to enter into transactions using their foreign companies rather than directly from Russia, for example. Many clients also want to protect their assets, for example, from unstable governments if they happen to be incorporated in countries with unstable economy and unstable political situation. So there is a controversy as to the legality and the benefits and disadvantages of using the offshore companies. But just to sum it up, again, there is no evidence that there was actually tax evasion involved in these schemes and in Paradise Papers scandal.
If all the schemes were legal, why do you think some politicians are really advocating to take action against these offshore centers?
Well, the reason, there is a quite obvious reason, because many multinational corporations with huge revenues, they shift their profits offshore to the zero tax or low tax jurisdictions, and obviously the governments, they get less taxes, and also the public sector in this country also gets less money. So it's again the problem of financing the public services. And according to the rough estimations, according to, for example, BBC, about roughly 100 to 240 billion US dollars annually are shifted offshore. So the numbers are huge, and again, according to the BBC estimations, for example, the numbers of profits that are moved offshore, they amount to the joint GDP of the UK, France, and Japan, which is huge.
I think that's further proof the great amount of trade and international business that it's actually supported on offshore financial centers.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think that this further demonstrates the importance of offshore financial centers.
Yes,
for commercial
obviously,
business,
that's why it's such a big, such a significant topic right now.
Talking about that, Anna, could you please tell us a little bit about the most important industries involved?
Actually, you already briefly named some of them. Paradise Papers focus on both companies and individuals, and they are united by one thing, actually huge money. Some of the world's biggest multinationals features in the league, including Apple, Nike, Facebook, Uber, and some others, as well as some richest people in the world, from Queen of United Kingdom to Bono from U2. And for example, such as Prince Charles, President of Colombia, and US Secretary of Commerce. Also, major clients of leading banks and accounting firms such as KPMG, Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and in the Cayman Island, half of Appleby top's 20 clients in 2014 were major banks and investment firms such as Citigroup, Bank of America, HSBC, and some others.
Actually, you mentioned this. It's basically financial services, IT, and retail. So it's basically most of world's trade leaning on these fundamentals.
Yeah.
So I think that shows the important impact in the world's economy.
Yeah, the scale.
The scale, right? Anna, can you please tell us a little bit about what is Appleby's take on the Paradise Papers. Have they released any statements so far?
Actually, Appleby already said that they would be happy to cooperate fully with any legitimate and authorized investigation of the allegation by the relevant authorities. So they're really sure that they didn't do any illegal actions, and they truly try to support all authorities with investigations. Also, Appleby said they acted for the establishment offshore, providing structures that helped to legally reduce their tax bills. They are adding that we are a law firm which advises clients on legitimate and lawful ways to conduct their business. We do not tolerate illegal behavior.
Right. What do you think they will take as measures in the future?
Actually, Appleby, as you said before, Appleby already mentioned that the firm was not the subject of a leak, but the subject of serious crime. And they said that they were hacked by somehow illegally, and the system was broke. And this was not the work of someone from Appleby. It was not the employee of Appleby. It was definitely someone from another side who just want to make some illegal actions against the firm.
Right.
And the measure is like try to protect the system as better as possible.
Yeah, I think we're in these times we're all subjects to hacking for different scenarios, either
exactly.
data privacy
you
or
can never know.
Right. Thank you, Anna. Ina, have you found anything from the OECD so far?
Well, there is no official statement of the OECD with regards to the Paradise Paper scandal. However, a few experts and officials made some comments. So, for example, the OECD Secretary General Angel Gurria told the press that the tax practices that were revealed during the scandal are a legacy that is now being dismantled. So according to many experts, owing to the last measures taken by the OECD, it's now becoming more and more difficult to evade taxes and to use offshore for illegal purposes. So it all actually started in 2008 with the Liechtenstein scheme. At that time, it already drew lots of political and public attention, and it helped the OECD in its work to promote greater tax and financial transparency. After that scandal, actually, OECD successfully introduced the BEPS action plan, base profit erosion plan, which includes 15 actions. And after that, the OECD introduced the exchange of information upon the request. But the disadvantages of this exchange upon request were the following. First, you had to know who is the person you are interested in. So you must first figure out the party. And then you must find out where the party actually operates, so where you should send the request. So it worked, but it had very limited application, this exchange of information upon request. And after that, the OECD introduced automatic exchange of information. So already 102 countries have joined and are now implementing this automatic exchange of information. So in 2017, 49 countries are now starting to exchange information on financial accounts automatically. And in 2018, 53 more countries are going to join. So around 102 countries will exchange information on financial accounts automatically. And we assume that those countries like Taiwan, Belize, and a few other countries that haven't joined the automatic exchange of information as yet, they will be under pressure and they will eventually be forced to also join the automatic exchange of information. Also, I wanted to mention that there was the 5th OECD Forum on Tax and Crime that was held on the 8th of November 2017, so quite recently. It was hosted by HMRC in London, the UK. And in the closing statement, the OECD has mentioned its policy with regards to the tax schemes that were also revealed by the Paradise Papers scandal. So first, the OECD said that they're going to set the global standard for tax transparency and exchange of information with the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes. So what it means is that the OECD encourages all countries, all members, to ensure that the identity of the beneficial owner of all the trusts, estates, and companies is disclosed. Secondly, the OECD suggests that a global standard on regular and automatic exchange of financial account information should be developed so that the owners of the financial accounts are disclosed and are available to the tax authorities of different other countries if needed. And thirdly, that all countries and members should share best, should take collaborative actions in order to mobilize a whole of government approach to tackle and crack down on tax evasion and tax avoidance. And also the OECD came up with the five action plan. But again, the main points of these action plans are, as I've just mentioned, to disclose the beneficial owners, to disclose the owners of the financial accounts, and to further increase the tax transparency of the financial information.
Great, thank you.
That's the main points, yes.
Here on this section, we're going to talk a little bit about benefits of offshore centers. As we can see, it plays a big role in international trade and in the commerce in general. The world's economy in general would be affected if offshore financial centers were severely affected through policy. Offshore financial centers not only provide protection to privacy or competitive tax solutions, but also provide an opportunity for diversification and stability in a very uncertain world. Income from from direct employment and diversification of the economy, revenue from taxes and fees are among the biggest incentives for offshore jurisdictions to keep their competitiveness. Offshore financial centers provide a starting point for many businesses that struggle to operate internationally. Small and medium enterprises are increasingly involved in the use of offshore financial centers to grow and internationalize their businesses and be more competitive. There are many critics to offshore centers. There are many arguments against this, and especially lately after the Panama Papers. How the media is portraying each story is playing a key role in the public's perspective on the matter. Even though there are people that take advantage of offshore centers for illicit purposes, this doesn't mean that all the people using offshore financial centers are using for or targeting the use for illegal practices. Caribbean countries and other offshore jurisdictions, including the UK itself, have demonstrated commitment to meet international standards and increased efforts to ensure compliance in KYC procedures. Registers of beneficial ownership are now in place, where in some cases information is publicly available, and in others is upon request of the authorities. Offshore financial centers are playing a big role in the current world's economy and international trade. According to the UNCTAD, 30% of corporate investments have been routed through offshore conduits. Tax neutrality to avoid double taxation, jurisdiction specialization like the Cayman Islands infrastructure for hedge funds, Bermuda's infrastructure for the captive insurance industry, and many other examples can demonstrate the important role of offshore financial centers in the world's economy. Offshore financial centers are important drivers of economic growth, allowing companies to diversify, conduct international business, invest more into research and development, create jobs, and allowing countries to increase foreign direct investment, maintain governmental administrations competitive, and international growth in general. Could you please tell us a little bit about the foreseeable future of offshore centers from a policy perspective?
Yes, as one of the BBC commentators said, they expect that murky offshores will remain murky for a while. But anyway, speaking seriously, even though the OECD wanted to come up with a blacklist of offshore jurisdictions that should be somehow limited to incorporate companies and open bank accounts, it's a bit unrealistic because not only offshore. The problem is that offshore business is not made only offshore, because we know that owing to this Paradise Paper scandal that actually the UK and the US are one of the main hubs for this offshore business, and they facilitate many of the firms that operate offshores. Another problem is that, as again one of the experts said that even though many talk about offshores, those people who talk, they normally know very little, and those people who actually know a lot, they don't really talk. So the problem with offshores is privacy. So it's really hard to trace down all the people and the companies involved in these schemes. But we expect that, of course, the international business will be subject to major amendments and changes, and first of all, owing to the OECD's initiatives like the BEPS action plan that I've already talked about, and the automatic exchange of information on about the financial accounts of different companies and high net worth individuals. So we expect that the classic offshore jurisdictions will not be as popular as they used to be. Why is that? Because mainly because now more and more countries follow the OECD guidelines, so they try to promote substance. They try to promote the requirement for establishing the beneficial owner in all the transactions. So now it becomes really unfeasible to evade tax and to use to take advantage of double non-taxation based on the multilateral conventions between countries. So countries will have to adjust, and companies and individuals will have to adjust to the reality. So, of course, more and more people will be willing to declare their assets and reveal their companies controlled by them. So there will be an increased demand for greater transparency among clients. And actually, one of our major sectors at Eltoma is now advising our clients in advance on the advantages and disadvantages of incorporating companies in different jurisdictions, and also considering the tax implications of different transactions. Because obviously it's better to plan in advance rather than deal with the consequences.
Right.
So these are the main. This is our main focus.
Anna, do you have something that you would like to add? As
Actually,
services
no,
opinion?
I think I totally agree with what Ina said.
Right. Yeah, I also agree, and I hope that the public in general will not actually be scared of researching and actually using these offshore financial centers. I'm a big advocate for free market and to improve international transactions worldwide, and I think adding more barriers to actually trade and international business will only go in detriment of the world's economy otherwise. Thank you both for your time and for the research and efforts put on in this panel discussion. Actually, here at Eltoma Corporate Services, we offer legal advice, tax planning solutions, and we apply very rigorous high standards of KYC and compliance procedures for all of our clients to feel safe. And we're also talking about all of these issues. It's important to note that we can also advise and help with tax residency, especially in Cyprus, where you can obtain tax residency spending only 60 days in a year. If you would like more information on that or any other issue related to this, you can contact us directly to the information displayed on the screen. And we look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and we will try to reply to every comment and question as soon as we can. And thank you for your time again, and we hope to see you soon in future panel discussions and webinars. Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you,
Thank
Alvaro.
you, Alvara. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.